blessing is that when we first checked in, we got in, and of course we're tired. We've been traveling all day, and they had little ants in my room. So, me, I'm like, okay. And so Mike looked at me, babe, we're not changing our room tonight. I said, okay. I said, I'm still going down there because first thing in the morning, they're going to change my room.
Good.
So, as I was going down, God just really started ministering because I said I wanted to have the right heart. And he did. He really just adjusted my thinking, even though you think that you're kind of level-headed, whether I won't say necessarily, but humble. You kind of think that you're coming from those means, and then I just had to stop at the desk. I mean, I went and told him to change my room. I told him, I said this, that, and the other. Do you have bug spray? Do you have something? I said, we'll suck it up tonight, but tomorrow, before breakfast, I do want you to change my room. And they're very nice, very accommodating. But even
Good.
as I did that, it just said some of the people that we were helping had no roofs. They were living, and when you look at the picture of Brazil, when you pull it up, how they're living on top of each other, that is their reality. And I said, you know what? This hotel would be somebody's Rich Carlton. And I'm in here talking about, can you change my room? I got ants. And I said, okay. So, and then I had to keep saying, it's a mission trip. Some mission trips, they got you out in the boondocks, in the bush.
Yeah.
I don't have any floor,
No, but
So,
that's great that you were able to recognize that.
yeah, so I put things in perspective, and then that's when I was like, so they changed my room, we're good. But my whole complaining, just I snuffed it. It was like, because the reality is, though, I'm here to be a blessing to them, and whatever I'm bringing, I need to bring it from the point of God's love, and I can't have crap in my heart if I'm trying to do something that God wants me to do for somebody else. So, so that was my aha awakening moment. And
Good.
then after that, yeah, it was. And it just was like, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to make the best of it. Whatever it is, I'm going to celebrate him. And when you see these people, they're just like so excited about God that it was like, and whatever, if you're, helping them, they're sending their kids over to us, and they couldn't even speak because they speak Portuguese. They're literally, I'm walking in the door, and this mother is just pushing her kids to me and going like this. Just pray. Now, they couldn't even understand what I was praying, but they knew I was praying in Jesus' name. And they were like, just pray. This one man is another story, and then we're going to start. This one guy was walking past Mike. Now, we're in a coliseum, a stadium of 80,000 people, okay? And this grown man is walking past Mike. He stops, backs up, and he buries his head in Mike's chest. And Mike's like, yo, dude. And so he looks up at Mike and just goes like this. And so Mike said, I'm praying in, so Mike's talking in Spanish. He said, I'm praying in English. He said, no problem. Like, go ahead and pray. Whatever you're praying is gonna work. And so, so Mike just really just prayed for him. And then later on that night, the guy comes back with his wife, which was one of the translators. And then she just said, what Mike prayed over him, he was a pastor.
Oh, isn't
And
that
now,
funny?
yes. And so now him and his wife wanted to pray for Mike and I. So it was like
Oh,
connections like that were made that were just, it was priceless.
that's so nice. That's so good. And it actually like brings me to thinking about I know that we never come in with a topic. So let's start with our prayer because I kind of want to continue this because I feel like this is a good topic. And I'll tell you why after we pray.
Okay. All right. We will, because of course I have a backup if you didn't. So we're good. But Father, we invite you in. We always invite you into every conversation that we have with you, that we may both decrease, God, that you may increase. So I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for this platform. And I thank you for what you've already designed for us to discuss. We invite you in, Father. We don't let any flesh get any glory. It's not about me. It's not about her, God. It is all about you. And that we may impact and empower the lives that will listen to this podcast. So I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you, God, we count it a privilege that you come in and navigate this conversation for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. What did you have written down just out of curiosity?
I had purpose.
Well, it all good. So that is kind of what I'm talking about. So I learned this week that but I'm doing my dissertation and stuff.
Right.
So my chapter 4 finally got approved. It's been
okay.
So long. So now I'm on to chapter 5, which is my empirical article. And then chapter 6 is a professional piece, and then I'm done.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I know I'm getting towards the end now. But the empirical article, I have my findings and I have to pull from my findings. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to share something. I wanted to show you this regardless, but this all goes together. So let me show you something real quick. So in
Okay.
a couple days, I'm going to get a DOI number for this. It's all right, here we go. So this is from when I went to that American Education Research Association.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see it, but if you pull it up full screen, you should be able to see it.
Okay.
So, okay. So this right here is, it's called my iPresentation. So it's an upgrade from before. Before they used to just do PowerPoint slides. So now
Okay.
instead of PowerPoint, they have this iPresentation. So I wanted to show this because when it comes to purpose and it comes to things like identity and stuff like that, we really are in a spot right now where people are losing a sense of purpose and they're losing their sense of identity. And because of that, it's leading to feelings of hopelessness. And when people feel hopeless, right, then they're not really, like you could compare your experience there to your experiences here. And although you still have the same great experiences here, like you were saying, there's clearly differences. And it seemed like they were very appreciative of you, even though they didn't understand what you were saying. Imagine in the United States, somebody was handing you their kid and being like, pray. Like that wouldn't happen here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody would do that. So what makes it different? What is the difference? And I think purpose and identity are the difference. So I think that both of our topics come together because it's the exact same thing. So over here, what I was able to do was, this will be up forever. Like even after I die, I said to my daughter, I was like, this is going to be up till I die. And she's like, Mom, when you die, they're still going to keep it up. I was like, you're right. She's like, someday your great grandchildren can like cite from this. I was like, oh my gosh, it was so funny. But this over so our purpose here is to evaluate the relationship between things like purpose and identity. So over here, we have a purpose statement. And what I did with my qualitative case study was look through self-authorship, which just means, so let me just tell you, self-authorship is when you construct your beliefs, values, and identities based on a personally defined internal process rather than relying on external others. So why this is important. Right. Well, this is important though, right? Because when we're growing up, one of the things I learned from listening to our podcasts over and over, because I have been editing and stuff, so I re-listen to them a lot. And when I re-listen to them, I noticed that we always go back to like core things like relationships, interpersonal, so how we feel inside our own identities, and then what is truth? Like what is knowledge? How does somebody know that what I'm showing right now is legit? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Somebody has to trust me that I, for the past 4 years, have done almost nothing but this research. So you trust me because you know that I have been doing nothing but research for 4 years. But what about somebody that's in Brazil? How do they trust me?
Exactly.
Things like that. And whose truth is truth, right? So how do I know what I say is real and what you say is real? So I think that this is a huge topic because what's happening right now, especially in the political realm, is that if we don't understand what is truth and how that affects us and the people around us or our relationships, then that's a real problem to our sustainability as a country.
I agree. And I love it. I agree. I love this.
I appreciate that. So over here, what I did was, this is my tables. So I did my research study on 18 student participants. All of their names are pseudonyms, so none of these names are really their names. They were allowed to pick their name, right? I'm just letting the public know, just in case. Like I would never, you know what I mean? If I asked somebody to study it, I wouldn't want them to be like, she's going to put my name out there. So, but the rest of the information is correct. So what I found was I went above and beyond this time by adding an artifact. So an artifact was just something that the student felt was an important part of their identity journey. So something that gave them purpose, something that gave them identity. And I got, if you see, everything from one person wrote and sang a song to me to somebody who bought a Harry Potter book, ripped out all of her favorite pages and pasted them to her wall as wallpaper, to a class photo, to a photo of or transitional objects that went through things like surgery. On the next slide, it's this again. So it's just the other remaining participants. And then what I did was, this is different. So I finally have my findings, and this is what was finally approved. So my instructor kept telling me that I was selling to old people, I wasn't selling freedom. And what she meant by that was, she said that her fiance is an advertiser, and they were selling these electric chairs, like those chairs that bring you up the steps. And the company was selling to the old people. They were like, they kept showing like old people getting in the chair.
Sure,
And
sure.
Right. So what he said was, we're doing this wrong. We're not selling these chairs enough because we're only picking one group that can benefit from these
Exactly.
chairs.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, what about the disabled people? Right. So he said,
It was like
instead of selling
your focus group, right?
right. So instead of selling to old people, you want to sell freedom. So freedom is the bigger theme, and independence. And that could be for anybody. If you're disabled, that would
Yes.
that would sing to you. If you're handicapped, that would sing to you. If you're older, that might sing to you. So over here, what I did was, she told me that my themes rocked her world, which was like, you don't understand. This is like the biggest compliment a person can get from this instructor. She's very, very hard, but she's good. And what I did here was, these are the things that I've noticed in our society. So from 18 to 24, and I believe you have a child in that age group, right?
Yep.
Okay, and I have one in that age group as well. So from 18 to 24, I think this is important for people like you and I to even learn, so that we can understand our kids, right? So one of the things that I looked at was, how do participants describe the role of external influences in shaping their perception of information messages on and offline? So really dealing with two things here. You and I grew up with just traditional values. We grew up and we were either, Italian or African American. We were a boy or a girl. We were, smart or unsmart. Like, there were so many, just dichotomous answers, where it's just two answers. And in today's day and age, there's more than just two answers, right? So if you even look at gender, that has changed over since we were growing up. There wasn't pan and cis, like there wasn't all these different gender terms. So, and the reason there is now is because of the proliferation of information. So people can find other people all over the world that are like them. And now they don't feel so alone in their town, their small town, where, they don't know any other gay people. Like, they can go online and have a purpose there, right? So over here, what I noticed is that our kids that are in the 18 to 24 age group, so your son and my daughter, are the very first generation to have grown up with social media or just internet access for their whole lives. So after that, all the kids were exposed, but they were the first. And why does that make them important? Because now we don't know. We have to understand that their values might shift a little bit from ours, because they're being exposed to more material, and they're being told that they can be more than just one thing or something else. So I want to get your opinion on this. So I was looking at, I did Under the Influence. You're supposed to do like not provocative, but a theme that's going to get somebody to be like, under the influence. Like, what are we talking about? And here, what we're talking about is their two sub themes are the difference between my own personal values and the cultural values that I was grown up on, or my religious values. That was a big one. Religious values were huge. I had some participants who followed in their parents' footsteps as far as their religious values. And I've had other students who have shunned away from it. And then I had students in the middle that took in all of the different, so they studied all of the different religions and then chose bits and pieces that spoke to them. And this is the thing, and for their mom and dad, that might be a really scary concept, because they might be thinking like, wait, you don't have the same beliefs as me? Like, what's going on? But to them, they're saying, I believe what you believe in, but I've been exposed to even more. So I've been able to identify with more. So what is your, let's start with that one. What is your intake on this?
I guess the first thing that I want to acknowledge is, as you're talking about our children being the first ones coming to that platform, I love the fact that they come from a stable foundation, that they have the knowledge base that we've, imparted to them. But then, of course, with the new information, they still have the opportunity of what to believe and what to choose. So I love the fact that in the next generation that has been impacted by not only social media but knowledge and the internet, that they still have, and it's the same thing. We are a part of our environment regardless whether we want to or not. Whatever environment I come out of, I still have residue on me from that environment, so whether it's positive or negative. So with our children coming out from our springboard, our foundation, they are still going to be partially influenced by what environment they came up in. Even though you do have, that's my internal, even though I have external inputs and stimuli, I still am going to be governed by what impacted me most. And usually it's your foundation of the environment that you're coming out of. But even with saying that, the onus still lies with them of what to choose. So perfect example, when you say, as far as our kids coming out, and now the one young man or young lady that says, okay, that I had a religious base, and now I've explored all religions, and now I want to make a choice. I love the fact that even though they have a foundation that was springboarded from us, they still have the option to choose. And for us as parents to respect that, to be able to say, okay, just because my mother, my mother's mother, whatever, I did it this way, does not necessarily mean my kids have to do it the same way that I do it.
This is
And to
why I do
respect.
a podcast with you, because you're brilliant. That's exactly the right answer.
Oh, is it the right answer?
Yeah, that's exactly the right answer. But that's why your kids are so well-rounded, right? So you've been able, and I think part of that goes back to your identity growing up, because if I remember correctly, you were the child that was more like rebellious, not rebellious like bad, but like rebellious, like I want to, like I want to
Yeah,
do it my
I did. I was the one that lived life. Yes, totally.
yes.
I was definitely the
And
one that
but I
lived life.
think so. I think that's why you're then you feel more comfortable being
I
able
am.
to allow your
Yes.
children to live their lives and your grandchildren to live their lives, whatever that may
Yes.
be someday. So
And
I
that
guess,
that is so true. But even with that though, and I think that, of course, my son, he's an adult now doing, and I call it adulting, doing adult things. And so I say to him, but even though you are in that season and you're making your own decisions as an adult, there are still times that I am going to interject my opinion or my thoughts into your life. And it's the same thing I say to my daughter. She's married, got kids, the whole nine. But there are times that I may see her doing something. My job as a parent doesn't stop. Now, the problem that I kind of shy away from is when I see these parents that, like, the kids turn like this magic number 18, and now they want to leave them to their own demise. And it's like, okay, but I don't care. My kid could be 30 something. And it's like, I never stopped being mom. So
never.
there's times it's like, when you're in the passenger seat, there's times that, when you're teaching them to drive, you still have to keep your hand on the wheel, right? Even though they may get comfortable, they may be able to, lead, talk and all that. But when you're teaching them how to drive, you still keep your hand on the wheel. But I think that to me is a part of parenting. That
That's
even though I
amazing.
was grown, I was married, that I never thought that because kids, it's the same thing with us. You think you know it all, but you're still being molded and you're still being formed. And
You're
to to seek wisdom, I think, is the greatest lesson that any generation can have.
And
Because
coming off of that, I think you're right. And not only that, but being able as a parent to let your kid know that you might not instantly like love their choice or whatever, but but that you are willing to be open because that is your child and it still is a reflection of you. So why wouldn't you want
yes,
to, why wouldn't you want to love that child? So,
right,
but there
right.
are so many people suffering right now that don't feel like they could talk to their
I
parents. So
know,
I guess
I know.
people in our generation, I would say that a reflection of you is the difference is there's a lot of narcissistic people in our generation, unfortunately. And that's
Uh-huh.
because we got social media when we were in our young 20s. So it was like, oh, now I could talk to all these people. And I don't know.
Yes.
So it gave a lot of people a sense of being more important than when they really were, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
And with that, I think comes a lot of negative things for our children then. So I think it's important to have these conversations. For example, one of my students said that cultural expectations are huge in their family, but that they often feel conflicted because of what they see online. So what they're being taught at
Yes.
home is different than what they see online. And how do we
Absolutely.
right? And how do we let our kids know that they're going to be exposed to things online and that how to take that in and be able to decipher what's real and what's not? What advice would you give to somebody?
Okay, that's a great question. So, and it's just the same thing, with you and I. I just didn't fall into a field as far as of this. So, with the access that we have to the internet, to knowledge, to research, I would always say, if I'm deciding on something, then research it, get your information. And then once you get that, now you can make an informed, educated decision on what you're desiring to do. Don't
So
just go
what if
to it.
I have a question though? What if somebody said, okay, but where are you getting your information from?
And see, this is it. Now everybody goes to Google. Google, I listen, there's information out there on me to Google that's wrong, but I just said, what the heck? It's not making it's not. So that's why I would not gather all of my information from one place. That is the first
Okay,
thing.
that's great advice.
Thank you.
No, it
So
really is. That's great advice. That's one of the things that I would write in my discussion section is that people need to make sure that they're getting information even from the outlets
from
that they disagree with, just
yeah,
so that they know
absolutely.
what's going on and what their neighbors might be thinking and why
Because
they
I
might
can
be thinking that way.
always learn, even if it's something that I may not agree with, I can always learn something from it. So whether it's Google, hey, old school, you can go to the library. I mean, there are plenty of resources out there if there's something that you're, endeavoring to do or to embark upon. So once again, if your child comes home and they say they want to, okay, I want to move to Alaska, mom. Okay, what do we know about it? What are you going to do there? And see, my kids know anytime they come up with something new, I would say, what's the plan? I am a planner. What's the plan? Don't just come to me with a fairy tale story. What's the plan? How are
You
you going to
just you
survive?
just hit the nail on the head. So I think one of the big things that I found was that the line between reality and fantasy is not as drawn for some people as maybe it is for us. So
Yeah.
like maybe you and I understand the difference between fantasy and reality, but there is a subset of our culture that maybe struggles. So maybe they don't have a foundation that you and I have, or maybe they
Mhm.
don't have a mom like we are, you know what I mean? So maybe
Yes.
they don't have somebody they could go to. Maybe they're getting switched in and out of foster homes and they're
Right.
afraid to. So there's just so many things that could be behind that person's story that I think it's important that we take all of that into account.
I
I forget
agree. I
exactly where I
agree.
was going with that, but I think I made my
Because
point.
it's the fantasy, because keep in
Yes,
mind,
fantasy.
we still think, and it's just like what social media, what, you know, Facebook, all of the platforms put out there, they put out an illusion of my life. That's first thing. So you're watching, you're scrolling.
Preach
Oh, and
it.
you see me, I'm on the yacht with the glass up and I'm toasting. Okay, doesn't show you when I get off the boat, I'm getting into an Uber, okay, flying back on a budget. You don't see that part of it. I show you the part I want you to see. That's the illusion. And see,
That's right.
because you now are so busy scrolling, that is your majority of your intake. You're taking it in like, oh my goodness, they're living the best life. Oh my goodness, he's whining and dining her. You don't see they just had a big fight on the way into the restaurant. No, you didn't see any of that. But see, I'm only showing you the part I want you to believe, which is a fantasy. And then I now start molding my ideas around what relationships should look like, because this is what I'm scrolling and this is what I'm seeing. I'm not showing you the work. I'm not showing you when we were up 1 o'clock in the morning arguing about whatever. You don't get to see that part of their life. You only see the part they want. But then that is forming your ideas of what relationship, commitment, what it could be, even as far as education. I'm only showing you the cap and the gown. I'm not showing you the night that I couldn't finish my paper and I'm crying because I didn't have anything. I was fresh out. I was drained. You don't see that part. And so that's the part, that the problem of the social media, that we only show the highlights of our life. We don't show, the crashing down. We don't show the valley situations. And see, that's, what, sometimes they talk about fake news. It's a fantasy. But unfortunately, the next generation is building their paradigms based on fantasy.
And that's a problem, right? Because it might
Yes.
not, like right now, we're still in that middle generation with our kids where we're kind of, but that scares me for the future. Like like where, you couldn't have said that any better. You literally hit the nail on the head with all of those things. So I think one example for people could be watching like princess movies, but nothing else. So you just watch princess movies, and then you're disappointed that your, fiance didn't come and propose to you in a
Right.
carriage with
That he that
horses.
he that he actually is the frog. Yes.
Yes,
You're
yes.
you're you're,
And
you're waiting for the knight in shining armor, baby girl. He's the frog.
yeah.
So
And
the
let's
question,
say, and even the sad thing is though, even if he's a good guy, a lot of times if the girl has that fantasy that he's supposed to be, coming in like a white knight or
yes,
something,
yes,
like that doesn't make any sense. And I think it's important for us as parents to make sure that our kids know that this is fantasy and this is reality, because for
right.
some kids or young minds, they start to blur those two things.
They
And then
totally
that
do.
can be scary, right?
Right. Because keep in mind, when you're pouring that into you're watching it, watching it, watching it. It's like all these reality TVs that is so toxic because you're inundating yourself with all of that information, and then your paradigm doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality because it's the same example that I will always give. I'm in a movie, I'm watching a scary movie. Based upon the music, I can determine what the outcome of this person's life is. So why is my heart beating fast? I'm in a movie. The man's not coming to kill me, but that doesn't stop my heart because what my paradigm, my eyes are watching it. My paradigm is saying, "Oh God, this is real." My heart's going, doo, 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 doo. It's looking like, okay, what's going on? Because why? My body is responding to what I see. It is the same thing. I'm looking at all of this on social media. My body, my paradigm, my mind is responding to what I see.
That's
And then now
amazing.
I'm going to try and act out what I just saw.
You're absolutely right. And then so now my big problem with it is I'm afraid that it like now brings, like, we have even things like crime now that wasn't possible generations ago. So before we had the internet, there wasn't a Craigslist type crime where you can,
Right.
do you see what I mean? So like, or there
Yes.
wasn't like, so the more technology we have, on one hand, it could be great for society. It could be great for
Yes.
things like discovering, cures to diseases, things like that. But then on the other hand, it also heightens something that only humans have, which is the ability to create a fantasy that they can try
Yes.
to enact. You
Because
said it
it's
so great. I'm
yes.
so glad we did this topic.
Yes, I agree. Because right now, the generation, it's something that just amazed me that, and it was like my little niece, it was like, okay, did you manifest that? That everything is about now manifesting something. I don't even really think that they know what manifest means,
Yes, I
but
agree.
because you have a illusion as far as what manifest means, you really don't know. Sorry, did that
Oh, you're
block
good.
our view? That was a
No, you're
call.
good.
Okay, so that you really don't know what manifest means, but everyone's like, "Oh, I manifested him. Oh, I manifested this. I manifested my job. Hold it." And so it was so funny because it was one of the young girls was talking to me like, "Oh, did you manifest that?" I said, "No, I didn't manifest anything." Because keep in mind, I am not a creator. I am not the creator, first off. Now, I can believe and speak and do that. And there are spiritual laws that are working every day in our lives. Yes. Whether you call it the law of attraction, whatever you call it, there are spiritual laws that are operating in our lives. And that there are, like, as far as the same thing you're talking about, laws of attraction, or whether you manifest something. But how can I manifest a person when I can't manifest something in my own life? But that's a part of the facade.
That is so right. I never even thought of it that way. That's brilliant. I can't wait to use that on someone.
Yes, because
That's
we
great.
keep thinking because once again our social media intake, you still got that Cinderella dippity doppity do that I'm just going to create something out of nothing, or I want this ideal relationship and I'm nasty.
Or I
Okay,
don't want
come
to put the
on.
work in. Or you don't want to put the work in. You just want
You
it
don't
to
want to
be
put
like,
that's it. You just want him to come and his sole job is to make you happy. You can't make you happy. So why would you leave that responsibility on somebody else? So
no,
once
you
again,
said
it's
that
like
great.
where's our mindset? Where's our paradigm? Where is it shaped? Where is it formed? And who would give the authority of someone else that you're still learning the opportunity and the access to make you happy? No.
Mm.
And this is my last one, because these are all things that I cover when we're doing marriage counseling. But this is the
No,
last
this is
one.
great. This is covering everything on my page.
Awesome. So when it talks about that two halves make a whole, no, two halves make a mess. Okay,
That's right.
that is it. Because if I am not complete in who I am, if I don't know who I am, if I'm not able to make myself happy, if I don't know my value, if I don't know my limitations, if I haven't created boundaries, what am I expecting this person to deal with all of that? I now hand him a mess, my life, and I say, fix it. He can't fix his life. And so then now
Mhm.
you're wondering why you're clashing, because no one ever had the hard conversations as far as wait. What is your what do you say? What is your idea of what marriage and relationship looks like? What does commitment look like? Because commitment nowadays looks totally different than it did in our day.
That's what I mean. So as things change, like that would be information. So depending on what generation you're in or what times there are, it really does change everything else in
Yes.
society. And that's what I think I'm learning through all of my research. So
Yeah.
even things like I've been doing a lot of research. So after the 1960s, things like sexual assault started to get rise. And the reason
Hmm.
being is because women started to get rights. So
Yes.
as I start to get rights and now I'm able to go and educate myself and get a, better paying job, I don't have to put up with you anymore if I don't want.
That's
So
it.
as a result, now I feel out of control where before I had no problem. I always thought you were going to be subservient to me but now you have rights, and it makes somebody when they don't feel in control get out of
Yes.
control,
Yes. But and
right?
that's why I just say I love these platforms, because here we are empowering women. And and the beautiful thing is, let me just say this as a disclaimer. I don't have to diminish the man's position or his authority in my life to empower women. And
That's
sometimes you
right.
get on some of the platforms, you hear you're bashing men, and there's this, that, and the-. No, this is not what we do. To empower a woman, I do not have to degrade or diminish a man's position or his authority. It's
That's
it's
right.
it's about you empowering you, what makes you happy, and to soar and pursue that. That's what it's all about. Because as I do that, I will now discover what makes me happy, and it's not solely predicated on him.
That's
That
exactly
that's the
right,
part that that kind of as I talked to my baby girl club, that it's like, why does my soul happiness rely or center around a man?
it shouldn't.
It's lopsided.
It is lopsided. It shouldn't
Now,
be that
yes,
way.
I enjoy relationship. We biblically were created for relationship. We were created to be loved. But with that creation, he is supposed to first know how to love me, and he has to love me through the vehicle that God has given him. So it's not all physical, it's not all emotional, and it's not all just as far as receiving. There is an exchange, because as God gave him the instruction, he said, you are supposed to love her as I love the church. That is what God's plan was for relationship. Love her as Christ loves the church. So what is it? That he was willing to die, sacrifice, took everything in consideration before he made a decision, so that is what a balanced relationship and love should come from.
Okay. I like that. That was really good. And I
Okay.
think that that brings us down this list here because my second question is how do students understand dissonance? And dissonance, just for anybody out there that doesn't know, is like discourse. So it's argument, not argument, where your ideas might clash with someone
Okay.
else's, right? So
Hmm.
how do participants, and participants means young adults between 18 to 24, how do they understand dissonance from a crisis or at a crossroads in their journey? And what I found is that they really did, there was a tug of war that they had. So for one of my students, they said, I have to be. I'm very privileged, but not privileged in a way that I can walk across the street holding my partner's hand without having to worry about hate crimes. So, in one area of her life, she recognizes that she is privileged. In another area of her life, she also recognizes that she's marginalized in another area. So, she feels privileged, but not so much that she feels comfortable enough to be 100% herself. What would you say to her?
Okay. One, it sounds like she is in a multicultural relationship. If she,
Um, she's in a she's in a relationship with another female.
Okay. So I knew that there was a distance with her saying that, I know I've got access here and acceptance here, but in this other hand, when I bring this other part of my life in it, it's now a wall. So that's what I heard with what you just said. So that's
And
why I
which
just said,
her thing is she's a white middle class
yes, that's
female.
what I picked up. So I've got privilege on this end, but now if I introduce this part of my life, now I've got segregation. So I picked that up. So I either knew it was either racial and next one was going to be, gender. So I knew
No,
we had
right.
to pick
And you
one of
did
them.
pick up on it with the relationship. You
Yeah.
definitely did.
So with that, so, her question is, what was her question?
So, and it's up here too. So it's
Oh,
Jade. So she says that she can't walk. So when she was walking in New York one time, she was holding her partner's hand, and a group of like young kids, not young, but like teenagers, grabbed the back of her hair and pulled her down, like as she was walking. So this
oh,
came out of
wow.
nowhere, and then they started calling her like slurs,
Wow.
gay slurs. So ever since then, she has been struggling with that, I'm sure, because now she's
Sure.
like she's afraid. Do I hold my girlfriend's hand in public? Do I not? But am I going to? So, what would you say to someone like that?
Well, one, I always say is just anything else. One, you got to know your environment. It's the same thing, that everything is like a melting pot, as far as, you've got Asian, Indian, Black, white, Chinese, everyone's intermixing now. So, that is a part, once again, of our kids making their own choices that, I don't know who or what my son will bring in the door. But this is my thing, that to know that I have established a safe zone for my children.
That's amazing.
That that would be the main thing. That whatever it is, you have a safe place here.
That's amazing
And
because
once
I
again,
think
and of
that's
course, we've talked
missing.
about this. That does not mean I agree with you or your decisions or your choices, but this will always be a safe place for you. And the next thing is that you're always aware of your surroundings, regardless of where you are. So it's the same thing. We travel all over the world. And some places are very open and welcoming to people of color. There are other places that are not. Now, that regardless of where I am, because I won't know that till I get there, but I am always aware of my surroundings when I'm walking in the door. And then I mean, and see, now she kind of understands, I guess, to a degree with being exposed to that there is a vibe or an atmosphere that you can walk in that may not be accepting to you, even though you may be privileged. You're privileged in whatever thing, it's like, okay, if I'm in the penthouse, you don't really care what color I am. You don't really care what I'm bringing in, what gender I'm in, because you're all about, we're in green now. So
Hmm.
we're not looking at color surface. We are now looking financially. So with that, that was my first tip. You said, what would I say to her? First thing, always be aware of your surroundings. And then the next thing, you have to be comfortable in the skin that you're in.
Yep. So she is now. I think she's come a really long way over the past couple of years that I've known her, and she is more comfortable now in her own skin. And one of the things that she said was is that she realized that for her to get out of danger, all she had to do was stop like holding her girlfriend's hand. But someone like you can't just take off your skin or whatever and
Right,
can.
right.
So like she did, but and again, so there goes that dissonance again, or that. So in one hand, she could have these fears, but she also realizes that she can, if she doesn't talk about those things, that somebody might not see that about her.
Right, right.
Does that make sense? I hate that we
It
live in a
totally does.
society like
Because
that.
the reality is, though, that's what people sometimes, when you get, different cultures that are arguing back and forth, it's who's right, who's wrong. Oh, I've got racial prejudice here. Oh, I've got generational prejudice here. Oh, I've got gender prejudice here. There is so much, because of course it's all centered around ignorance and knowledge. You don't know anything about me to hate me. But what you've heard, once again, your foundation, that we know that prejudice is taught.
Yeah.
Someone has said something in your past. You've had a sly joke. You said this, that. I never forget one time, it was a girlfriend of mine. It's a side story, sorry. It was a
No,
girlfriend of
no,
mine.
that's good. People like side
She
stories.
she moved into the area. Now, my area when I was coming up was predominantly Black in the area, but then of course on some of the other streets there were more white people that were moving in. So it was kind of a melting pot, when we were coming up going to high school. And now she moved into a predominantly Black area, but she was white. And I would never forget this. We were at the bus stop and she is walking down the street, and I could feel the weight on her shoulders, like, oh my God, what have my parents just done? And just, I saw she was walking, she had her head down and she's taking baby steps and she's walking down into a predominantly Black community. And now everybody's at the bus stop. So I left the bus stop and I started walking toward her. And I just walked up and I said, "Hi, I'm Melody." She looked up and it was like the sun. She's like, "Hi." I'll say her name is Stephanie. That's not her name. She said, "Hi, I'm Stephanie." I said, "Did you just move in?" She did. So I'm just making casual conversation, just to make her feel, because I have always been, and I think that was a part of the calling as a youth. I've always been for the underdog. I never want
Me too.
anyone to feel uncomfortable. I never want anyone to feel isolated. I am always a protector. And so that was it. So needless to say, she rode the bus with me. She sat on the bus with me. She got off. She was in school. She came to be one of my best friends growing
That's
up.
amazing.
It was. And then lo and behold, and I find out now when we're in like high school that she likes girls.
Oh
I didn't
wow.
know that. I didn't know that then. But then because she wanted to confide in me, and so she's like, "No, I want to tell you something." And so then she said to me, and she asked me this question, like, "Did I care?" I said, "Doesn't change who you are, honey.
Good.
Doesn't change who you are. Your
That's
choices doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change how I feel about you." And then she
that's
started asking me some biblical questions so that we had more in-depth conversation about it. But that's what I'm saying as far as knowing your environment, knowing your circles, and then the people that are going to support you are going to support you. They don't have to agree with you. So never, when I say that, as far as support from people look different from other people. So I don't have to celebrate you and be like, "Oh, the way you go," just to support you and love you. That does not mean that.
And
But
that it
people,
looks different from parent to parent, because if
absolutely,
you're younger or a teenager or a young adult and you have friends, parents, and like you're doing yourself no favor by comparing parents with each other.
no,
So I
no,
was just saying to my daughter today, the one parent she loves, like her love language is cooking, mine is not. So but she constantly has like food out and stuff. So I would love to go to her house because I would love to be served. That would be fabulous. But if
yes,
you come here, you better fend for yourself, because I
come
mean,
on,
I have it, but you could make it yourself. Like,
yes,
ask me if I want some of anything, you know what I mean?
yes,
So, but I'm good for us having like 3-hour conversations about life and about self and about being authentic, where maybe another parent might not be so approachable. So
yes,
just know that everybody's parents, it doesn't make one better or worse. It just makes them different, and feel lucky that you have, okay, well, if you guys are looking to get, served on with food, you go to this person's house. If you're looking to come have a conversation because you have a crisis, come to my house. Like, so I think it's about knowing people for who they
who
are
they are, and then how they
authentically and
value you
accepting.
too. I think that's a part
Yes.
of it too. How you're valued. I mean, I know, because same thing when we were in kids, if we wanted somebody to come and get the teacher's mind right because they did this, that, and the other, we went to my mom. She did not play when it comes to her kid. If I wanted someone to come in and be intellectual and then just perplex their minds and blow them with large, that was my dad. He went to Princeton. It's like, so your kids know who they are and they know what buttons to push. It's the same thing now.
I have a newfound respect for your dad. I've been thinking about him for the past 2 weeks because
Have you?
Because Ava is very, very smart. And we were talking about like going to Princeton. It's not that far, but she was like, "Mom, nobody gets into these schools." So I did look it up, and it is on the top 10 hardest list of schools to get into. It's right up there with Harvard and Yale. However, I then said, okay, but what does hard mean? My hard and your hard might be different. What is hard? So I did further research to find out that although they accept under 6% of applicants, that one of the things that the applicants that they do accept had in common was community service of some sort. And they had a grade point average of at least 3.9. When I showed that to Ava's got both of those things like under the, like with her eyes closed. I
Yeah.
mean, this kid does more service than any other kid I know her age. And then she just got her GPA. She has a 4.1 GPA. I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. Right. So when you take like the AP classes, you get higher than that. So I'm like, Eva, that does show that like you have to keep your mindset. And it's not that I can't do it. Of course, we're going to, apply to other schools too. But
Right.
why not?
Why not? And see, once again, babe, our kids don't have a ceiling. There's no glass ceiling over their head. There's no limitations over them. So, but look at what you just did. You did exactly what we're just talking about. You had a question, you researched it, you looked into it. You didn't find the answer. You didn't stop with the first thing. Oh, I just Googled it. No, you kept on looking. You kept on looking. You said, okay, what do they need? What is the requirements? How do you get them? So then you went multiple places. Okay, let me go on their site. Let me see what they're saying. Okay, let me see what so and so did. So that's a part of making a decision. You gathered the information and now you made an intelligent, informed decision based on the research that you found.
Back to your dad, he must have been brilliant.
Oh goodness, he was. Oh, he was.
He had to have been.
He was. He was so brilliant that he was scary. He would make, even when he was in school getting his doctorate, he would make his professors mad because he was so smart.
That's
And he
good.
was one of them. And keep in mind the generation he came up in, that, so he understood the whole, he came from down south, the Jim Crow thing. He came out of that. So he was proving his worth, not only to himself, but those that are around him. So he wasn't afraid of standing his ground. Oh
Good
my
for him.
goodness. He was an activist. He was all of that, but he was so knowledgeable that even his professors couldn't get him in a debate because he was so well versed.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
I just keep going back and back and back and back with you. But I really look up to him because if the fact that he was able to do all that and do it in a Princeton environment is
style. Yes.
That's amazing. Which brings us real quick to identity renaissance. That's just about, so I had one student that got to self-authorship, meaning that she has already done the whole, I evaluated my values for my family and my online self. This Valerie kid has been through a lot. She's a disabled participant who's had over 30 surgeries. And so a lot of the things that maybe her friends were, going through now, she had already been through years ago because she's been through a lot. So what she says is being disabled is a part of me, but I am Valerie first. And I love that. So she understood that, yes, people are always going to see me as disabled because I am. She's missing toes. So of course, she knows her environment. When she goes and takes off her shoe, she already knows that there's nothing wrong with her feet, but most people have not seen a foot with 3 toes on it. So there's going to be a lot of people, even if they don't, it doesn't bother them, they might still make a face like, wait, what? And do a double take. And she gets that has nothing to do with her or her being unattractive. It's just the fact that people aren't used to seeing 3 toes on a foot. And a big part of that was her parents' ability to get through to her, that's not that people are going to think that, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And that if you saw somebody with an eye in the middle of their head, you might do a double take too. It doesn't mean you're going to like them any less, but it might give you a double take, like what's going on. So I thought that was great. And then at the very end with the artifacts, I found that students, so Elena's dad died when she was a teenager. He died suddenly. And so she had a stuffed lamb that she had her whole childhood. And to this day, she said it makes her feel safe at night. I didn't realize it did. I was afraid of being alone. Now I hold it close. When you get older, you imagine having to leave her behind, and then you just know. In other words, she's taking her with her wherever she goes. And I think it's great because she learned that it's okay if you're out there and you're a young adult and you have a transitional object. So that means a stuffed bear, a blankie, any of those things. That's okay. There's nothing, and I promise you,
there's nothing wrong with it.
I promise you,
I wouldn't want you to get married with it now, but yes, it's.
Oh, my husband makes fun. He calls it my rag because the older I get, the more disintegrated it's.
You hold on to stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Just this one thing. It's from my childhood, and my daughter does the same thing with hers. And she's funny because she says she's like, Mom, sometimes AJ will say goodnight to the bear, and I'm like, why is AJ saying goodnight to the bear? Where's AJ at that he's saying?
I said because keep in mind that's great because it's gotten you over a rough span of life. So it was there for a reason. It brings you culture now. I mean comfort, but
purpose.
At a time
Back to purpose.
There needs to be some sort of weaning because of course you don't want to be tied to this in your 50s. You're in your 50s and you're tied to it. I mean, at this point,
I'm not tied to it like that. For me, it's more of a memory. I could go down the shore right now and leave it home. I have no problem. But if you are a young adult and you're in your late teens, early 20s or whatever, it is okay to have a transitional object. And let's end with this, girls. So what I found out was, since my daughter is a junior in college now, is I can sew. So people will always come to me with their pants or whatever. Can you sew, Angie? I always say yes. So I have sewed more holes in male transitional objects than I can't tell you how many of these boys had a stuffed animal or something that I had to fix for them. And I'm like, so girls, don't think you're the only person. You might find out that
you just don't know about theirs. Yeah, you just don't know about
Exactly. And I guess that's a bigger, I think that brings us full circle because it brings us all the way around to the beginning. What is our purpose? What is our identity? And our identity might, and our purpose might be different than each other's, but that it's still just as important and unique.
Yes, I agree. Now,
That was a
even
great
going
session.
back to the young lady that is disabled to a degree. It's one thing that she says she's herself first, but even her disability never allow it to define her. And that's what I think she has definitely done with
Yep.
now being able to identify herself and realizing, okay, I may have this, but that doesn't define me.
No, you're
It
right.
doesn't make me, it doesn't limit me. It
And
doesn't.
she just had a recent like because during this when I was interviewing her, she was going through a time where she couldn't wait to get a job because, and I'm sure her parents want her to get a job because she's getting older now. You know, her kids always ask for money, so she was doing a job, but the problem was she was it was hurting her legs. So when she went to the doctor, you could see that it was like physically like deteriorating the bone, and she's only 20 years old. Like you don't want to do that right now. Like
Right,
that's not.
right.
So she had to make a decision and she had to quit that job. And she didn't quit like, you know, I'm leaving, but she told them why. And they told her, you know, how about this? Because they really loved her there. They were like, how about if somebody calls you out, we'll call you if you're free. Because they said you could do it every now and then. But she's like, you don't
Good,
work at a
good.
job every now and then. And they were like, yes, you can. So I thought that was so cool. So they had like a meeting and they still invited her as if she was part of the group. And I'm like, that's amazing. I love that.
Yes, because once again, knowing her value, she went to them. She had the adult
That's
conversation.
right.
This is where I am. They showed her we value you, and God created space for her.
That's right.
And it is, and it's the same thing, And somebody's so funny just coming, off of work today. There's so many cultures that actually want to force you to give them an acceptance or to force you to make an exemption for them. And sometimes you just have to have the common conversation. And when you do that, because when you do value me, and I value the job, because if she didn't value the job, she just would have been like, I'm not coming back.
That's right.
So it's
That's
an
right.
equal,
That's
yeah,
right. That's
it's
right.
an equal exchange. So I'm valuing you by informing you of why I have to leave, and you're valuing me by telling me, wait, I may have something for you. Instead of standing, how about I put you in a chair? How about, how about we make this, or how about we let you do this? That there are always ways that we can meet in the middle to, obtain the same thing. And
That's
and I love
amazing.
that. That is, to me, is like a victory story.
It is. It definitely is. And now she actually talks to other parents that are in a similar situation. Because again, this would be the benefits of social media is
Yeah.
that what she has is so rare that it only happens to like 2,000 people in the world a year or whatever. And that's in the world,
Wow.
not even the country. So you're not
Wow.
really meeting somebody in class that has the same thing as you.
Right.
However, if you go online and you look for a support club for it, there's people from all over the world that also
Yes.
have it or join this. So she goes on there, and if she sees a parent that's having a hard time, she's very well versed. And although she's 20, you would think, I mean, she's got the wisdom of an 80-year-old. And she says, like, she'll talk to the parent. She said she's had them call her before, or like do like a voice chat like this.
Good.
And
Yeah.
and that they were like, they couldn't believe like how knowledgeable she was about it. And she did realize that her journey might not be the right move for everybody else because she met a boy on there who also had the same thing as her, but his parents had 6 children and he was somewhere in the younger kids. So it wasn't like they could just stop having kids. Like he was already, and for them, for their family, it made more sense to amputate his from the knee down, which is what a lot of people do. And at first, although she was like, wait a minute, why? She said, Mom, I thought about it. And like, he's a soccer player. He's like, he does all this stuff, like, and it's never affected him in that way. So for him, he's been able to make it, what's the word you used when we started that he's been able to make it purpose.
We're talking about purpose?
Yes, he created a purpose for himself. So,
Yeah.
and he knows his purpose. And although they had different ways of their parents handling the situation, like she kept her, like, but then she also went through 30 surgeries. So maybe her mom didn't have as many kids and
Right.
therefore felt like that parent was fortunate enough to be able to do that with her or for her.
Yes. But so even with that, because as you're saying, because, his history, her history came from different platforms from the parent style. But, but even with that, though, it's the beautiful thing is that they didn't let it define them. They didn't let them stop them, didn't let it be as far as like, okay, this is the main thing. So, you look at the Olympics as far as, for, I don't like
The
to call them
Special Olympics. It's the Special
special
Olympics. I used to volunteer
Olympics.
for the Special Olympics all the time.
Yes. And to me, that's empowering. That
It
you
is.
don't have to, if this door closes, doesn't mean it's the only door. That's what I
Oh,
want
I
to say.
love that. I love that. But and even it took me over 4 years to understand that just because one door closes doesn't mean that another one isn't right there to open. And
And it
sometimes
doesn't
you'll
mean it's
find
the
that
only
that other
door.
one is better. That's
Yes,
the
and
thing,
it's not
though.
the only
Right,
door. And that's what
right.
I found out, because even with learning, I'm very visual, I'm very, interactive. So you can tell me something, I got it. Now, for me to sit down, and this was like going through school, sit down and read a book, that was like watching paint dry for me. Now I am embracing doing more reading. I would have
Yep.
never thought that. If you asked me that 20 years ago, I'd be like, nah, put it in a movie.
Yeah.
But
No,
now,
you're right, though.
yes, but see, I realized that just because once again, my sisters are the bookworms. They're in it. It's the same thing I told you. It's my family that they were all educators, and they're all,
That's amazing.
starting with this. One sister, she changed her major so many times. I finally said to her, what are you still in school for?
People
So
were like, "What did your sister graduate with?" I don't
yeah,
know. I
all
don't
of
know
it.
which one she landed on.
Yeah, I don't know all of it. She's still in it, but so even with that, so now to reinvent, this is our platform. Now that I'm able to reinvent, my value system has changed from when I was in my 20s, what I valued from school, and what I'm getting from school now. That now
And your
my
priorities have changed.
yes, and my
Your
purpose, because
purpose.
the
That's what I
reality is
meant to say. Your purpose has changed.
yes, because I think one of the most important things, and this is for somebody out there, that whatever you're endeavoring to go into it focusing on trying to be the best that you can be, the best version of you. I don't need to try and counsel like anyone else. I don't need to try and coach like anyone else. I want to do it the way I do it, because there is a reason that God called me to do it. So I don't need to be another, Dr. Jamie Gona. I need to be the best Melody Williams I can
That's right.
be.
That's
Because
right.
when I try and now imitation is great, but I don't need to try and duplicate her, because I do her and I both are injustice.
That's
But when I
exactly
am the
right.
best version of me, I celebrate both of us.
I love that. So I think that was an amazing
Yes,
podcast today. That
yes,
was awesome.
yes.
So please, for anybody out there, please feel free to put your comments or questions, and I will be sure to check them, and I'll keep you updated too.
She always does. So thank you so much for this opportunity. We thank you for listening and sharing and commenting, because you do help us to encourage another person behind you. Once again, you're the door. When you open the door, it's not just for you, it's for the person that's standing behind you in the shadows.
That's right.
So we
And
always
thanks
rise
everybody
together.
for watching. Yeah, make sure
Thank
you
you.
like, subscribe, and share.
Yes.